Hi guys, welcome back to another furniture refinishing episode. My name is Walesa from Alive Refurbished, and in this channel we remind you that just like there's hope for these pieces of furniture, doesn't matter how tough things get, there's always hope for you. And for today's episode, I'm gonna use this patina from Dixie Belle. This is a new to me technique, helps you to achieve an iron bronze look on your piece. I'm gonna be using some decoupage paper, so stick around for today's makeover. Here we have a former mini sewing cabinet table. It has that fold down top, and as you can see, unless you do something else with it, it's really not practical. So we're going to be removing this part and then attaching the top straight to the table, building a shelf so that this could become a more practical or functional end table or nightstand. In case anybody is curious to whose those little hands belong to, they belong to my 12-year-old son, who asked me if he could help out in exchange for some cash. Here my husband flipped the table upside down and unscrewing that top. And this is what we are left with. We cut up another piece of wood to make the shelf, and then those three pieces that you see here, those are going to be mounted on each side of the cabinet so that our shelf can rest on those. To avoid the wood from splitting up, we're drilling some pilot holes first, then adding some glue, and finally adding the screws. We had to add some wood filler to where the hinges used to be on the top. So after a couple hours, we sanded that until smooth, and also the rest of the piece that still needed to be sanded. We're gonna move on to our last step before we start priming, and that is to wipe our piece down. I'm using a furniture prep solution from Lily Moon Paint. It's very important that once you clean the piece, it dries completely before applying your primer. Today I'm priming with clear shellac based primer, since I'll be painting with a black color and going for that iron rusty look. I'm applying 3 coats of this fast drying transparent finish and sealer. One hour after my last coat, I went ahead and started scuff sanding with 120 grit. This is just so that my paint has good adhesion. Of course, you have to remove all the sanding dust afterwards. This way we can move on to the fun part, which is painting, of course. For my base, I'm applying 2 coats of the color Anchor from Dixie Belle. Since the weather was in my favor, I waited half hour between one coat and the next. Quick reminder that if you want links to any of the products that I'm using today, they are under the video description. Also, I have not invited you guys to join me on Instagram if you want to see daily updates on the projects that I'm working on. Before we move on to the next step, you need to make sure that your paint is completely dry. So I waited 2 hours before applying my patina paint iron. To achieve more of a natural rustic look, I added the hardware back on before applying my paint, and this paint contains ground metal in a non-toxic water-based acrylic hinder. Make sure that you pour whatever amount you think you're gonna use on a separate container, and that is where you dip in your brush. I'm using a cheap brush to add texture. Remember, we're going for that iron metallic look with rusty texture here. So I'm just dabbing in all the areas that I want that patina effect. This green patina spray is going to activate the paint and give that bronze, copper, and iron look to this piece. You can spray, brush, or sponge on the patina and let the reaction work for 2 to 6 hours. You can reapply if you want a deeper color. I should explain why it's important that you pour whatever amount you're gonna use of that patina paint into a separate container. What could happen is after you apply the patina spray and you try to make touch-ups with that same brush, there will be residue left over on the brush. When placed back into the container, it's going to activate that paint and it's gonna get rusty, messy, and I don't know if you're gonna be able to use that much of it. You want to see the magic that took place overnight? Check this out. Doesn't that look like true copper and iron? I wanted the patina to stay to the edges on each side of the table, and for that I just sanded the middle part with a 220 grit sanding sheet to smooth it back down, and then reapplied a couple of coats of my base color. Since I wanted a natural looking transition between my base color and the patina effect, I made sure that where the two colors met, I dabbed that base color. Do you guys remember that cute front door? After I put it on, it was just too drastic of a change between the rest of the table and the door. To make the transition look a bit more organic, I added some of the patina to those edges. I know this little table is gonna have enough character as it is, but I still wanted to add some decoupage paper to the back of the door. I cut out the paper a little bit bigger than the size of the door. I mixed it with some water to remove the wrinkles. Here I'm applying a coat of top coat. It's gonna serve as a glue. So I'm gonna be setting my decoupage paper on top of it. Carefully here, I think I went a little too fast. As you lay it down, you wanna try to remove the wrinkles if you want, or unless you want them. Some people wanna go really rustic, but I just wanted to make sure I got rid of any air bubbles there. While that's still wet, you're gonna apply another coat of top coat on top of the paper. About an hour and a half later, after the top coat had dried, I grabbed a 120 grit sanding sheet and started sanding the edges. This is one way to remove the excess of the paper here. You could also use an X-Acto knife. Here my time lapse might make it look like I'm sanding fast, but I'm actually going slow because I don't want to rip off the paper from the edges. On this edge in particular, I noticed that there was some paper that got stuck beyond where I wanted to. So I just sanded it off and then touched up that area with paint. To make this side of the door look more cohesive with the rest of the piece, I also went for the same effect, so I applied my patina paint iron, and over that I used the green spray patina. Is the day where it all comes together. We're screwing that shelf that we made back on, screwing the top back on, and I'm applying 3 coats of high performance flat from General Finishes. Are you guys ready to see this cutie full of character? Well, here she is. I love when you have a thought and an idea for a piece and it translates perfectly. This is exactly how I imagine the finish would look like on this cutie, so I'm extremely happy with the results. I'm well aware that this may not be everybody's cup of tea, but even if it's not your cup of tea, let me know what you think of the makeover in the comments in a respectful way. And if you love it, I want to hear it as well. For joining me for this week's makeover. If you've been on the sideline about trying this technique, I hope that today's video was just the little push that you needed to go for it. If you enjoyed today's content, please remember to give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment, because why not? That's the only way that I can connect with you here, and we'll see you guys next Friday.